You ever wonder how a single comment, just a few words in a TV interview, can spiral into a massive international diplomatic crisis? Well, that is exactly what just happened, and it's pulling back the curtain on some deep cracks in the Western alliance. Cracks that go way beyond a simple slip of the tongue. So let's break down how one sentence is pushing a huge global shift into overdrive.
It all started right here. In an interview, former President Donald Trump dropped this line about British soldiers who served alongside American forces in Afghanistan. He basically suggested that, yeah, they were there, but they kinda hung back from the real action, implying they weren't all that brave. And let me tell you, this comment didn't just raise a few eyebrows, it lit an absolute fuse.
The reaction wasn't just fast, it was ferocious. And look, this wasn't treated as some simple political gaffe. Over in the UK, this was seen as a profound insult, an attack on the nation's honor and the memory of their soldiers. And to really get why it hit so hard, you just have to look at one number.
457. That's how many British soldiers died fighting in Afghanistan. So you can imagine, for a nation that sacrificed so much, shoulder to shoulder with its American allies, the suggestion that their troops stayed a little back, that wasn't just seen as an outrageous lie. It was a deep, personal attack on their national sacrifice.
The backlash from the public and politicians was immediate and just overwhelming. It got so bad that social media platforms literally started adding notes to clips of the interview, flagging the comment as false. Then, videos of Prince Harry, a member of the royal family, serving as a helicopter pilot on the front lines in Afghanistan, just exploded online, directly contradicting Trump's claim. The message from across the UK was loud and clear. We want an apology. Now.
The pressure just became absolutely immense. It was so widespread, so intense, that it led to something you almost never see from the former president, a complete and total reversal. The firestorm he kicked off just became too big to ignore.
And wow, this slide just lays out the U-turn perfectly. Just 2 days after his first comment, Trump puts out a completely new statement. He goes from implying British soldiers were cowards to calling them brave and the greatest warriors, praising their sacrifice. It was a stunning reversal, and it was driven 100% by that furious international reaction.
So why did this one comment cause such a massive explosion? Well, because it didn't happen in a vacuum. It was like pouring gasoline on a fire that was already smoldering between the US and Europe. For many over there, this wasn't the start of the problem, it was the final straw. To really get it, we need to rewind and look at the whole saga over a certain Chinese tech giant.
Okay, so for years, the US was putting some serious pressure on its allies, especially the UK, to ban the Chinese tech company Huawei from their 5G networks. Washington was saying it was a huge national security risk. And after a long, intense political battle, the UK government finally gave in. In 2020, they officially banned Huawei, which was a major political victory for the Trump administration.
But here's where things get really interesting and, in the eyes of many in Europe, kinda hypocritical. While Washington was leaning on its partners to cut economic ties with Beijing, its own trade with China kept on growing. You can see how this created this deep frustration in Europe, right? It felt like they were being used as pawns in a great power competition, while the US was still doing business as usual.
And all of that brings us right back to today. That long history of tension, sparked by Trump's latest insult, has fueled what looks like a very clear, very deliberate diplomatic pivot. European leaders aren't just quietly frustrated anymore. They're actively and publicly strengthening their relationship with Beijing.
And the momentum is really building. You've got French President Emmanuel Macron coming right out and declaring that China is welcome in Europe. Then you have the UK, the very same country that banned Huawei under US pressure, now approving plans for a massive new Chinese embassy in the heart of London. And on top of that, there's a whole flurry of high-level European leaders booking diplomatic trips to China. This isn't random. It feels like a coordinated shift. And you have to understand, this pivot isn't just political theater. It's rooted in massive economic reality. Total trade between just the UK and China is about $130 billion. That makes China one of Britain's most important trading partners. These are numbers that are simply too big for any government to ignore, no matter who's pressuring them. So you take all these things, the insult, the history of friction, the economic reality, and it all boils down to one fundamental question. Are we witnessing the actual redrawing of the global map of alliances? Think about it. For decades, the world was defined by the Cold War, the US versus Russia, with Europe firmly in the American camp. Now, we're in a new dynamic, a competition between the US and China.
But this time around, it looks like Europe isn't willing to just pick a side. Instead, it seems to be charting its own course, right down the middle.
And there's actually a term for this strategy. It's called strategic hedging. And this isn't about abandoning old allies. It's about building new options, creating flexibility for yourself. By engaging with both the US and China, European nations are trying to maximize their own national interests and make sure they aren't dangerously dependent on any single partner.
What we're seeing is a more independent, maybe a more transactional approach to foreign policy, and it all leaves us with a critical question for the 21st century. As all those old certainties of the post-war world start to fade away, the answer to who a nation can truly rely on seems to be changing right before our very eyes.